fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo.
And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Baradelli here with you. So glad you be with us this week, as we are every week. Whether you tuned in at www.behindenemylinesradio.us, or if you're checking us out on AM radio, FM radio, the internet's radio, whatever the case may be, we're glad you're tuned in, locked and loaded here with us. Or if we're traveling along with you as a podcast, we are certainly glad to be along for the ride. And this week, folks, we're going to be hitting those hard-hitting topics that are going on in the news of, North Korea and, Department of Justice investigation. Oh, wait. No, we're not. We're not doing that this week. This week, we're hitting the stuff that seems to be all over the news, and that is a whole bunch of what I like to call Politi-Tainment. Political entertainment. The intersection of politics, celebrity, all that fun stuff, that mishmash where absolutely nothing gets done, but the popcorn is passed around like you wouldn't believe. And if there was ever a week for a discussion of Politi-Tainment, it's definitely this week, folks, because the news is chock full of it. And we're gonna hit as much of it as we can in the time that we're given here, but Lord knows, this is the sort of stuff, folks, where we came up with Buffoon of the Week and Buffoon of the Year just because of nimrods like this, okay? When we talk about things like the White House Correspondent Dinner, we're going to be talking about Kanye West, and we're talking about why we are so entertained and fascinated with this intersection of celebrity and politics. After all, folks, we do have a quote-unquote celebrity for a president right now. President Trump did come from a celebrity background, The Apprentice and all that, but even before that, he was a man of celebrity intrigue because of his wealth, because of his entertaining, let's say, relationships, whether it be in business dealings or personal relationships. Let's admit it, we are fascinated with celebrity, especially when it intersects with politics. Politics, folks, has been called Hollywood for less than attractive people. Obviously, they say it a little differently than that. They say ugly. But you know what I'm saying. Politics is Hollywood for the less attractive. People who want to be famous, but not necessarily because they look the part, or they're the leading man, or they're the leading lady. But they have a brain in their head, and they have a personality that's intriguing and fascinating and captivating. And that's what we see a lot of in politics, and we see it more and more so, especially since President Trump won in 2016. Cynthia Nixon is running for governor in the People's Republic of New York, and people are saying she has a chance. They're not dismissing her as not being a credible contender. They're saying she may have a chance against Andrew Cuomo, who is a legacy politician. His father, of course, Mario Cuomo, and he was a HUD secretary, and he's been in politics probably since the cradle. So there's all that. And as you flash through the news, whether it be Fox News, MSDNC, or any of these other places, you're seeing Kanye West's face everywhere. We're going to talk about him later on, of course. And, maybe we'll get a little serious with that. Nah, maybe not, but you'll see later on in the show. But first, let's talk about the big Politi-Tainment news that happened over the weekend. And that, of course, is what my friend Amanda Kohut likes to call Nerd Prom. And that being the White House Correspondent's Dinner. I could care less about this dinner, folks. It's become more and more relevant to my life and the lives of everyday Americans year by year. Mainly because, and we all have seen, especially since the 2016 national election cycle, the press operate in their own bubble. They have their own world. And the White House Correspondents' Dinner is the epicenter of that world, where they go around and they glad hand. I'm still trying to figure out how it advances the cause of journalism to have journalists pal around with those that they cover in Washington. Seems like too cozy and too incestuous of a relationship for there to be anything credible coming out of it. Anything with integrity from a journalistic standpoint coming out of it. I just don't get that. So we're going to pal around and be buddies and yuck it up together at a dinner that lampoons basically conservatives. And we're all going to pat each other on the back and get drunk and go to after parties and dress like we're going to the Academy Awards or to the Grammys or whatever the case may be. And again, the similarities there. Patting themselves on the back. Remember the whole Jerry Seinfeld reference to award shows and things of that nature? The White House Correspondents' Dinner is one big word that I can't say on the radio, but everyone seems to be, getting their jollies at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It's ridiculous. They're all ridiculous. But it gets coverage every year, especially since Donald Trump has not been going for the first 2 years of his presidency in protest for what he calls, fake news and all the stuff that we've seen in the press and misreporting and misquoting and mischaracterizing and hyping stories that shouldn't be hyped and ignoring stories that shouldn't be ignored. So the president has his protest, but this year he did encourage his staff to go, and many of them were in attendance. Former staff members like Reince Priebus was there, Mercedes Schlapp and her husband Matt, who of course is the head of the American Conservative Union, were there. And of course, as we've seen in the news, Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Kellyanne Conway were there. And they all had to endure a comedian, and I use that term lightly, named Michelle Wolf, who, before this whole news story broke, I didn't know who she was, I gotta be honest. But then I got to listen to her bit, her comedy routine, her monologue, whatever you want to call it, at the White House dinner. And I pulled some clips of it, and you know what? You judge for yourself.
We are graced with Sarah's presence tonight. I have to say, I'm a little starstruck. I love you as Aunt Lydia on The Handmaid's Tale. Mike Pence, if you haven't seen it, you would love it. Every time Sarah steps up to the podium, I get excited because I'm not really sure what we're going to get. A press briefing, a bunch of lies, or divided into softball teams. It's shirts and skins, and this time don't be such a little bitch, Jim Acosta. And I'm never really sure what to call Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Is it Sarah Sanders? Is it Sarah Huckabee Sanders? Is it Cousin Huckabee? Is it Auntie Huckabee Sanders? What's Uncle Tom but for white women who disappoint other white women? Oh, I know, Aunt Coulter. I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. She burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye. Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's lies. It's probably lies.
Oof. That's brutal. And I'm not talking about brutal because of the content of the jokes. I'm talking about the delivery. It was very amateurish delivery. I mean, listen, I may not be a connoisseur of stand-up comedy or, very, very well versed in what it takes to be a good comedian. But here's what I do know. Unless you're Jimmy Fallon, you don't laugh during your own joke. First and foremost. Secondly, the shrillness of her voice, I don't know if that's part of the act or if that's just her. But if it's just her, geez, Lou. It's like listening to nails on a chalkboard. It just gets annoying after a while. Again, have nothing to do with the content. This is just presentation. And the reason why I'm not focusing on content, I guess we'll get to that in a second, is because everyone seems to be focused on content. But honestly, what does it matter? If it's not funny, it's not funny. If the presentation isn't there, jokes are half of the joke is in the delivery. You ever watch a master comedian, even someone whose political views you may not agree with, out there doing their thing? It's in the delivery of the joke as much as it is the content of the joke itself. Content notwithstanding, the delivery was horrible. But speaking of content, the news coming out of the Nerd Prom was the assault, I guess you want to say, of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who was sitting on the dais. And, they talk about the grace and the dignity of Sarah Sanders sitting there enduring the slings and arrows of an amateurish hack of a comedian. Well, here is a sample of the jokes.
Good evening. Good evening. Here we are, the White House Correspondents' dinner. Like a porn star says when she's about to have sex with a Trump, let's get this over with. Of course, Trump isn't here, if you haven't noticed. He's not here. And I know I would drag him here myself, but it turns out the President of the United States is the one you're not allowed to grab. A lot of people want Trump to be impeached. I do not. Because just when you think Trump is awful, you remember Mike Pence. Mike Pence is what happens when Anderson Cooper isn't gay. I did have a lot of jokes. I had a lot of jokes about cabinet members, but I had to scrap all of those because everyone has been fired. You guys are going through cabinet members quicker than Starbucks throws out black people. We should definitely talk about the women in the Trump administration. There's Kellyanne Conway. Man, she has the perfect last name for what she does. Conway. Fox News is here, so you know what that means, ladies. Cover your drinks. Seriously. People want me to make fun of Sean Hannity tonight, but I cannot do that. This dinner's for journalists. You guys are obsessed with Trump. Did you used to date him? Because you pretend like you hate him, but I think you love him. All right, like an immigrant who was brought here by his parents and didn't do anything wrong. I gotta get the out of here. Good night.
Again, she's mumbling and bumbling and stumbling her way through. I just don't get it. Never mind. I guess it's a matter of taste, whatever. And that's what it comes down to, really. I think what we all need to learn from this whole situation is that we don't need to go after people and be like a snowflake and say, that's so mean. Why are you saying such nasty things and bad things about Sarah? We love her. And, to their credit, there are people out there who were condemning the content. Many on the left, Mika Brzezinski from MSDNC did that. Andrea Mitchell from the same did that. And I get it. That's cool if you want to bash the content. To me, it's not about the content of the jokes. First of all, if you're not funny, you're not funny. That's neither here nor there. To me, it's this awakening of the idea that we need to, bring down our leadership with jokes, and that we need to, take them down a peg, take Trump down a peg, take the administration down a peg, take his supporters down a peg, because they're riding high and mighty right now. And I'm just wondering to myself, where were all these high and mighty jokes? Taking down, the administrations for the previous 8 years before the Trump administration was inaugurated. These last 2 years have been brutal if you're the President of the United States for purposes of dealing with pop culture and dealing with, comedians taking pot shots and late night comedians doing the same and all this. Absolutely brutal. But where was that same brutality when the guy that they wanted in office, Barack Obama, was there? And, we can run through the litany of policies and things that he did that did not help America, from creating, food stamp culture. You know the whole thing. Scandal after scandal, Fast and Furious, shovel-ready jobs not being shovel-ready. We can run through the gamut.